Welcome to this Connect M3 Thought Byte podcast, recorded on the 27th of December 24. I'm David Charles, and my Thought Byte today is titled 3 million and counting. The story has, rather oddly, the potential to start something major. Barely a month has passed since a disgruntled voter in the UK's July 2024 general election decided to originate a petition calling for another. The petitioner believes the current government has gone back on its promises. There's nothing new about this idea, as any adult with a memory of past government behaviour will know all too well. Is there a difference with this idea? Maybe it's just the timing. There's a mood that something major is happening, here and in the wider world. It's as if the people are waking to the idea that all our systems need to change, and now will do. On Monday the 23rd of December 2024 at 7 p.m. precisely, the number of signatures appended to Michael Westwood's parliamentary petition, which read, "I would like there to be another general election. I believe the current Labour government have gone back on the promises they laid out in the lead-up to the last election." And that was reached the significant milestone of a massive 3 million. 3 million UK citizens have aligned with Mr Westwood's idea, now calling for another general election based on an agreed assessment of failed promises. The rules or protocols attached to parliamentary petitions are the following. If a petition reaches 10,000 in number, the government must respond. How kind. If it reaches 100,000 in number, the government is obligated to initiate a debate. Now, this isn't guaranteed, however. Depending on previous debates held, the matter of concern could be ended right here. How convenient. One's impression, though, from the above is that if 100,000 signatures are amassed, then the debate will happen in the Commons chamber with all 650 servant MPs invited to be present and participate. The reality is quite different. The government has set a date to debate Michael's petition on the 6th of January 2025, and the venue is Westminster Hall. The room allocated is likely to hold no more than 40 servant MPs, with a slightly lower number of seats made available to the public. This tells anyone the importance the 3 million are afforded. Given previous history, when debating important issues such as the safety and efficacy of the COVID-19 jab, the debate will take the form of a random collection of statements made by certain servant MPs. It is uncertain if the UK PM himself, Keir Starmer, will even be there. In fact, I'd say it's unlikely. This would be his perfect way to further downgrade the matter's importance, as seen by him and his supporting cabinet ministers. If this were to happen, then it could be his biggest mistake yet. With the petition book staying open for another 5 months, until the 20th of May 2025, who knows how many citizens could be added to the current 3 million who want this man and his followers out. Returning then to the 6th of January 25, we can predict a total absence of questioning, no real and proper debate, and no follow-up by an appointed committee to look deeper into the matter tabled. The safety and efficacy debate mentioned, which took place in October 2022, could hardly have been more serious or more needed. The debate, as it was called, was over and done with in 90 minutes, and followed by a simple vote. That vote being, is it agreed a debate has been held? Yes, was the recorded response. The matter was over, closed, job done, and they all went home. And so it will be on the 6th of January 2025, with little mention of another general election called for by 3 million citizens, since the current system doesn't require it. There is a real possibility the debate on the 6th of January 2025 will be the most watched, even the most talked about debate in Parliament for decades. I rather think it will serve as a powerful indicator of what is fundamentally wrong with the UK system of Parliament. It could be the beginning of people questioning why the UK has such a system, and more importantly, what do other countries have that clearly serve their citizens far better. Take, for example, the democracy system the Swiss have. The website ch.ch tells us this. Laws are made by Parliament. Most laws come into force without a referendum, but sometimes a vote is held on a new or amended law. This type of vote is called a referendum. Most laws are subject to an optional referendum. This type of vote is only held when someone is against the new or amended law and so launches a referendum. Optional referendums can be held at national (federal), cantonal and communal level. At the federal level, the process is as follows. A referendum committee is usually set up, and if it manages to collect 50,000 valid signatures within 100 days of the publication of the new legislation, a referendum is held. The legislation only comes into force if it is accepted by a majority of the voters. Get that. In a population of 9 million, just 50,000 signatures gathered in 3 months will trigger a national referendum. Does this sound like a good idea? Is this not a plus for people's democracy? Could we in the UK adopt this? The wonderful thing about this UK petition, started by Michael Westwood, a landlord of his own pub, the Wagon and Horses in Albury, in West Midlands, is that it has the potential to start a movement for real positive change. It has already grabbed the imagination of a stonking number of citizens. Keir Starmer's dealing of it on the 6th of January 2025 will most likely have the effect of pouring petrol on the fire that's now already alight, which he and his fellows alone started. It will be interesting to contrast Keir Starmer's reaction and commentary with the antagonist character in the 2005 film V for Vendetta. This film is now 2 decades old, but given the screenwriters also wrote the Matrix trilogy, it certainly gives the viewer more than enough to think about. It's based on a fictional future, a dystopian UK government headed by Keir Starmer's equivalent, the High Chancellor, played in the film by John Hurt. Also interesting is the film's protagonist is played by a man we never get to recognise. Throughout he wears a mask, a signature Guy Fawkes mask, because as we come to realise, he was disfigured in a fire at a secret government establishment where he and others were human lab rats. V is his adopted name, and played expertly by Hugo Weaving, who also played the antagonist Mr. Smith in the Matrix trilogy. The parallels in this film with the government today and the moves it is making with controls over people and the imprisonment of protesters is striking. What is also striking is the film's depiction of a deadly virus that sweeps through London and appears to have been a planned release. Very striking indeed. It's odd, but there are so many films from the past years that have uncomfortable abilities to predict real futures becoming realised now in the current day. V for Vendetta is just but one. Now a question. Are we, as innocent victims, being told how things will be, following the principle that antagonists in the real world have to tell their victims what is being planned for them? Or perhaps are we innocent victims being shown a spotlight on how things will be unless we take up responsibility to change things for the better? I personally don't know, to be honest, but both possibilities could be true. But changing things for the better, taking back control of our lives, and making governments work for the people rather than the reverse of that, seems like a good idea. A very good idea, in fact. Taking back control of our lives means, in part, having a greater say in what becomes law. I've already mentioned how the Swiss do things with their referendum system to deal with new laws and the people do not like. Speaking of which, the website I noticed, ch.ch, also states this. The optional referendum was introduced in 1874. Since then, around 200 optional referendums have been held, and about 40% of the laws proposed have been rejected by the voters. How many proposed laws might the UK citizens reject if they had the similar opportunity? Is this not a better way to run things? Now here's the thing. Imagine if the 3 million people I've talked about are added to, let's say, by another 3 million of free-thinking, imaginative and passionate types, all charged with a responsibility to propose new ideas for creating a better society, and at all levels. What changes do you think 6 million people could all come up with? In the documentary film noted in my postscript section, in the PDF version of this podcast, a comment is made that ordinary people and technicians find solutions to problems. Politicians don't. In effect, by design or otherwise, politicians appear to act as gatekeepers, actually preventing solution surfacing and positive change happening. Among the ideas someone is bound to propose, the idea that documentary filmmaker Michael Moore came upon when he quizzed the Minister of Education in Finland. He wanted to know how Finland had achieved such stunning results in education. What a find he made! Has it been adopted in the UK? You guessed it. No. So how many great ideas are out there just waiting to be invented or discovered by those with an open mind and a passion for positive change? What I do know is this. These ideas will never come from the democratic, political or parliamentary systems we currently have, but they can come from ordinary people, just like you and me. Perhaps the idea which came to Michael Westwood, another ordinary guy, and fortuitously perhaps, will be the trigger to start a revolution in positive change, started by the ordinary people. A change where the people decide how the country is to be run, rather than how it is now. Oliver Cromwell apparently had a similar idea 400 years ago. Richard Harris played Cromwell in the 1970 film Cromwell. In a late closing sequence, Lord Manchester, played by Robert Morley, reveals his own and others' purpose for being in Parliament, which is to gain rather than to represent. Is this an echo of how the film's screenwriters saw politicians in the late 1960s, rather than true historical fact? The screenwriters and historical fact could both be right, perhaps both right today, also another 50 years later. Following Manchester's admission, Cromwell delivers an earth-shattering speech which is moving and perhaps as relevant today as it was in 1970 and even the mid-1600s. In another of Michael Moore's documentary films about US healthcare, Michael learns from an expat from the US living in Paris that in France the government is afraid of the people. The woman adds, in the US the people are afraid of the government. Curiously, the same fear of government is mentioned in the film V for Vendetta, perhaps unsurprisingly. It could be a good time now for us all to take a critical look at Parliament and how we run things. In the new year, Connect will be assisting in a new initiative to discover what people think about a whole range of things. Its first mission is to listen to people's thoughts and ideas. Its second mission is to ask the question, how can these ideas be adopted into our society? Adopted to bring about positive change across a wide spectrum of subjects. The initiative is called the Listening Bus. So, the above are my current ramblings and observations on this most important topic of our time. But what, I wonder, are your observations? More importantly again, what are your thoughts on what you might contribute to positive change in our world? Any ideas? And now to finish, a postscript. It would be folly to think change can become about simply. Anyone reading this will accept this reality without question. The thing is, the problem facing us all when it comes to change is the system in place preventing it. That system is well established and has been for a long while. But who is controlling that system? Is it the establishment? When you have the interest to understand more about this control, when you have 2 hours to spare to learn how and why, then you may wish to delve into the dark corners of another reality, as this particular expose tells us how it really is. But don't be depressed. One only needs to remember, when enough people understand what's wrong, when enough people choose to correct what's wrong, something magical can and will happen. That's change. If you watch one video from the list that's given in the PDF version of this podcast, watch this one. It explains in simple terms the reality of the money system and the part interest plays in transferring wealth. It explains how globalization works and its effects on the world. It explains the real role of terrorism and the anti-terrorist strategy rolled out by government. It also explains, through the eyes of a previous CIA economic assassin, the influence the US has on the wider world. And these are all among a number of other things. It points to some of the issues that need addressing to make those changes. Thank you for listening to this Thought Byte today. I hope it's given you further things to think about on this important subject. For further information on this and related subjects, do check out the PDF version of this podcast, which is referenced TB-4525B. It also contains a number of links to supporting articles, plus links to many other enlightening and fascinating articles on a variety of topics. Meanwhile, I look forward to sharing my next Thought Byte with you very soon. Goodbye.